I'll also say a small thing to add in, like morning routines are really big. I think a midday pause is sometimes even more important than having that established morning wellness time. Many of us just they don't breathe and walk around with our shoulders up to our ears. I will hold my breath if
Me
I'm
too.
stressed out. Taking a little bit of a pause. I worked for Salesforce and they are very good about mindfulness and wellness. And when I was going to the office, they actually had meditation rooms in all of the floors, which
Oh,
is amazing. I got a lot of benefit from an afternoon meditation. Just an afternoon meditation was so much more powerful for me, like a morning meditation.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson, and today we're joined by Maddison Sutton, certified integrative health and wellness coach and functional diagnostics and nutrition practitioner dedicated to helping women take control of their health. After over a decade in the corporate world, she saw firsthand the toll of chronic stress. Maddison specializes in stress management, hormone health, and preconception wellness, empowering busy women to restore balance, boost energy, and build confidence. Her mission is to help women align their health with their ambitions and take proactive control of their well-being. In today's conversation, we're talking about how pushing and perfectionism impact health and how it's the small steps of self-care that lead to wellness. Maddison, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for this conversation, and I know that listeners are going to get so much value. I had to make myself just like, let's jump in and hit record because I know we could just chat and chat. So tell us a little bit about how did you get into integrative wellness and decide to become an FDN, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner?
For me, this has been quite a long journey. I think so many people that are in this space have come here because of personal experience. I was introduced into holistic wellness because it really was not on my radar, like not something I grew up with at all. I'm from the South. Like, even my family today is just like, what are we doing? Like, why do we have to eat this way? They just don't get it.
Uh-huh.
So definitely was not raised to believe the things and like live the way that I now live. I was introduced into autoimmunity when someone I was dating in my younger years developed. It was actually never defined like what he had. They were like, maybe it's Crohn's, maybe it's IBS, whatever it was. I think we kind of landed on IBS. Just really was shockingly like devastating to our lives.
Sure.
Just in an instant, I mean, really, it felt like overnight, just was so sick. Um, and that was just such an eye-opening experience. We tried all of the Western medicine approaches, we went and saw allergists, like we were just constantly in the doctor or the hospital. He had to, switch jobs because of stress. And we were in our mid-20s, so like
Yeah.
young, healthy. And it got to the point where they were like, we don't really know how to make this better for you. We're going to put you on this medicine. You're going to
Uh-huh.
have to be on it for the rest of your life. At one point, they told us even if the medicine didn't work, you were never able to stop taking it
Yeah,
because
they
if you
scare
stop
you.
taking, yeah, they
Yeah.
scare you.
Yeah. And
And
doesn't
it just,
matter what you eat.
yeah,
That's
it
always
doesn't
my
matter what
biggest pet
you
peeve
eat.
in the
It's
autoimmune
not what it
world is
is.
the GI stuff. No, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter what you eat.
it's really kind of horrible. And I was like, this is not gonna be like this just doesn't work for me. Like something does not feel right. in my gut about this situation.
Yeah.
So I just like scoured the internet, trying to find anything that I could. And we actually stumbled upon this pretty extreme diet that he went on for just 2 weeks, and started meditating every morning. He was like, I really feel that this is stress related. And guess what?
Uh-huh.
It got better.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Shocker.
so yeah, that was my intro into this, and it has just really evolved from there. But that was kind of what got me started on this path.
It's typically, there's some outliers, but for the most part, most of my guess is, if it wasn't your personal medical journey, it was a loved one, right? And so I know that that piqued your interest and kind of got you opened up to like, okay, maybe there's some other stuff going on. But you weren't working in integrative wellness yet, correct?
No, I, after this, would spend the next 8 years in a career that I really loved. I worked in the software world. I was customer facing, I was in sales, I was traveling, doing presentations. It was a lot of fun,
Uh-huh.
um, but very, very stressful job.
Sure.
Super stressful. I lived out in San Diego, or not San Diego, I lived in San Francisco for 3 years. And while I was there, I was supporting a lot of clients in Europe, a lot of clients on the East Coast. So,
Ah, sleep. What?
yeah, sleep wasn't happening.
Uh-huh.
My regular routine was to wake up at 4 and then have a presentation at 5 a.m.
Ouch.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was
And I'm
very
guessing you weren't
fast.
going to sleep at 8 o'clock.
I wasn't. I was trying. I was
Yeah, it's
trying.
hard.
Yeah, I had that knowledge, from this prior experience. Like,
Sure.
eat well, exercise, try to get sleep. But my biggest issue was sleep. I've struggled with insomnia, or I did struggle with insomnia for about 15 years.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
and that actually started in high school for me. I think that there was a lot of stress for me just from like my parents getting divorced and things like that when I was younger. So that's a bad habit that I brought into my adult life. And work really made that worse. um, but what really brought me into this, so I was enjoying my corporate career and everything, but very stressed out, not sleeping well, gained a lot of weight. Couldn't really explain where that weight was coming from because I was doing everything right. And then about 3 years ago, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and that was it. Like, that was the last straw for me. I experienced just extreme burnout almost instantly. Um, and started experiencing some really bad, like, nervous system issues. I was waking up every night. I couldn't feel my hands and my feet. I was
Yeah.
having all of these mood issues, waking up feeling energized. And then, it's 10 a.m. and I'm crying,
Yeah.
just all over the place. And that was really when I was like, okay, I've wanted to go down this path of holistic wellness for a long time. Doctors are not able to tell me what's wrong with me, even though I was
Right.
going to a naturopathic doctor. I am going to take my healing into my own hands. I am going to learn how to fix this on my own. And
Atta
I'm
girl.
going to leave my corporate job.
Amazing. Amazing. And I'm sorry for your loss with your dad. I've been there. So, but the rainbow becomes that you now are helping other people. You're empowering other people. I know that, especially women. And I want to talk a little bit about, we'll get into, your process and how you work and how you're helping women. But I had heard you say something in another interview that was so aligned, and right before we hit record, we were chatting for a minute. When I first, I say I didn't used to be as good of a coach as I thought I was at the very beginning, right? Because there's like so much information you want people to have and things you need them to do. And so I know in the beginning of my career, I had to be on some level driving stress up in clients because we would get to stress management and we would get to self-care and especially with my focus on autoimmunity, I went in hard with diet in the beginning, and I'm like you, I do a lot of testing up front, and so I have slowed my roll and changed my approach, and hopefully, better for it. The results people get are faster. And so one of the things that I always say with diet, everybody's focused on, what should I avoid, right? And they're not focused on, am I getting the nutrients I need? And we have that opposite, like flip it with healing, it's, more exercise, more focus on this, more focus on that. And I've heard you say, actually, sometimes we need to tap the brakes. And just even listening to your journey, when people ask about my healing journey and I didn't know what I was doing, it's never one thing, but listening to the story of like, yeah, diet and meditation or whatever, and we're going to talk about the possible whatevers. For me, I wasn't scientific. I didn't do one thing at a time, but that synergy of like avoiding triggers while also learning to reset my nervous system, game changer, because then I could sleep, then I could heal, and then my brain started to work again. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think especially with you, I work with women and men, but being an autoimmune specialist, I clearly work with more women than men. And I do think modern society has kind of done us a disservice with this whole we can have it all and we can have the career and the family, and the pressures on women are so different than they were 100 years ago, 50 years ago. You mentioned, insomnia in high school, right? Like it's just different. And I'm not saying men are not under a lot of stress, they are, but there is this kind of special level for women. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because it impacts, my audience is autoimmune, but again, a lot of women are trying to have a family or have tried to have a family or have had a family. And I know that was one of the things that you really focus on, is helping people get ready, because you are young and you're looking around and seeing friends your age struggling. So it's not just an autoimmune thing, like these impacts.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm really glad that you kind of brought up or said that point about how, it's not just the food.
Right.
Like it's not just the food, and everyone, maybe not everyone, 90% of people that start on a health journey, that's where they start.
Yeah,
They start with the food, they start with the exercise. It's where I started.
right.
It's where I started
Me
too.
too.
And the longer I'm here, the more like, yes, that's important.
Right.
And that was like the easiest thing to change, really.
I call it the low-hanging fruit, right? Like it's
Yes.
obvious that we need
Yeah.
real food.
Yeah. It's obvious. And it's funny because it's like that's the part that people think is hard. They think changing their diet is hard. They think changing the way that they maybe approach exercise, or the fact that they even need to exercise at all, is hard. But that's not the hard part.
Yeah.
Like really, it is a mindset shift. Um, and this is something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, because I'm like, do I really want all of my clients to just quit their job? Like, is that
Right.
really what I actually want out of them? Because I am like such a firm believer. I mean, I own my own business.
Right.
Like, I started my own business. I did it, on my own.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, I love that independence. I
Yeah.
absolutely believe that women have a place in the workforce.
Yeah. Me
Um,
too.
yeah, like I know that there's a big
Yeah.
movement right now, people believe like, maybe women should just go back to, being in the home. Like a lot of people believe that right now because of stuff that's taking place. I don't think that way, I'm like, we have to figure out a way to make this work. and for corporate life to not be so stressful on women. And, just working with only women, and like you're right with autoimmunity, I think it was like 80% of autoimmune conditions impact women. Um, just seeing the amount of stress that women are under at my age.
Right.
I remember probably 5 years ago, I was at a wine night with my friends, and we're in our like late 20s at this point, and everyone is miserable. Like people haven't even started trying to have kids yet. People
Right.
aren't even married yet, and they're just talking about how much they don't like their job and just like we're gonna push through till we make partner, like we're just gonna keep pushing, pushing,
Yeah.
pushing.
That
And I'm
hamster
like,
wheel.
just the hamster wheel, and it's just so unhealthy.
Yeah.
um, and I think as women, we are just wired to always raise our hand, always say yes, always volunteer. I think because so many of us are in male dominated fields, there
Yeah.
is just an
Just
imposter
push.
syndrome.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome, we feel that we need to operate as men in order to climb the corporate ladder because that is how people have historically climbed the corporate ladder. Like that is the only way that we know.
Yeah.
And I think it is just putting this massive strain on us that is really the cause of our health issues.
Yeah.
I really truly believe that stress is like the root of all health issues at
Sure.
some level, even if it's, a stress from maybe eating foods or toxins or something like
There's,
stress.
yeah, so many different kinds of,
Right.
well, and that's the thing with food, right? Like if you're eating even the perfect diet for you, but you're not breaking your food down and
Right.
assimilating your nutrients,
Yeah.
like, so you're not going to feel better. Like,
Mhm.
so, I love shifting that conversation. And I clearly agree with you. I not only have this business, I haven't actually talked about it on the podcast, but I have a functional medicine clinic as well, that I've been fully running now. I kind of had paused with the coaching, not paused, but all of a sudden I have a staff of 10 and it's a very different, even very different from the stressors of my, solopreneur business. And it's just, so I want women to be in business, run businesses. I just think, and I'm like really, and everybody rolls their eyes because I'm the health coach, when I had stepped in and before the clinic was mine, but I've been working with the clinic for years. Um, People weren't taking lunch breaks.
Yeah.
We're not taking lunch breaks. And, like there's no gold star for, I literally, like, I don't care. I don't care if you eat, I don't care what you do, but get out of here, go for a walk, and luckily my now manager, I coached about 3 years ago. So she gets it and she's able to kind of tell people like, no, no, really, it does make a difference. I know and I think some of that, the I'm hoping, but I think just like changing healthcare is going to take a long time. Corporate wellness needs to be a thing, right? And that approach, I know as a business owner, I get way more out of my employees when they're rested, they're nourished, they have breaks, they get outside, they take care of themselves. And so I'm hoping that at some point, corporate wellness really does become a thing
Yeah.
where the ladder changes, right? That it's not, who can run on 4 hours of sleep for how many years, and that's who makes partner, where we really can understand that value of like, let's not just put a gym in a corporation, like let's actually foster true wellness. And so I just wanted to second I do believe that women absolutely have a place in business. It's just we are going to need to help change the dynamic for sure. I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And kind of to your point about like the lunch breaks,
Yeah.
I feel like so much of my coaching is is kind of like unlearning.
Yeah.
It's the unlearning. And I mean, I get it because I had this mindset. We believe that we have to be these high achievers in everything, like high achievers at work. I also have to push harder to make sure I'm eating healthy. I have to push harder to make sure that I'm going to the gym every single day. If you're really struggling with your health, that's probably not what you actually need to do.
Anything with the word
Just,
push.
yeah, stop pushing, stop
Yeah.
pushing,
Yeah. But we don't know
go
how.
on a
Nobody
walk.
taught us how to
Yeah,
do that, right?
yeah,
The whole like idea that truly self-care is not selfish. Just, girls aren't taught that,
right,
right? You're taught to like give, give, give. Um, and so I truly do believe so much of our chronic illness, fertility challenges, like all the things really just are because we've ignored the whispers. And so eventually you're gonna rest,
right.
you're gonna get taken out.
Mhm.
And really, and that I do believe that's what happened to me. And I think we were talking about the like I'll call it your intro into
Mhm.
the integrative world with your boyfriend when you were younger of you said seemingly sudden onset, right? Like
Yeah.
there's and that's what happens, and it's like, well, but stuff's been brewing. And so how, so where do I like that you said unlearning, because I do feel like that is that one of our biggest jobs as a coach is helping people recognize their patterns that aren't serving them and unlearn them and replace them with things that do serve them.
Right.
So how do you even, because I can almost like hear your conversation with your clients, right?
Mhm.
You tell people to slow down, especially women in business. And I can't, or even, it's stay-at-home moms. Like, I can't, like, I have to XYZ. It's like that I don't have time
Yeah.
comment, right? So how do you wiggle into that?
So, I mean, it's a difficult, if it's a difficult conversation, it really
Sure.
is.
It's
I
not just
think
one.
yeah, it's not just one conversation. I think so many of us, and I really didn't, I've always thought I was like such a type B person, but after the past few years, I am learning that is just not true. Like I am a
Uh-huh.
perfectionist. I like control. Um, I like to be perceived in a certain way. Like
Mhm.
these are all these things that you learn about yourself when you create a business. And
Sure.
something that I really try to work on with clients is is like that perfectionist and that control. We got to work on easing up on that a little bit. And a way that I try to get them to do that is by realizing they don't have to do everything perfectly.
Mm.
If
Uh-huh.
you want to, like, weight loss is just such a big thing for so many women, I
Sure.
mean, it's something we all experience, especially when we're stressed out.
Yeah.
And they're like, I know I need to work out more. I know I need to work out more. But like, they don't because they don't have time. They
Hmm.
think they need an hour to go to the gym.
Hmm.
You don't. And I'm like, let's take small steps. Like,
Yeah.
that is my whole approach. Let's take small steps. You have to build it in. You have to start working that muscle. And I believe self-care is a muscle, and
Mm.
you have to start slow.
Yeah.
Start with those slow things. Start with going on the walk with your work friend at
Right.
2 o'clock in the afternoon. Just do a lap around the building.
Hmm.
Or, take 5 to 10 minutes in the morning to do some stretching. Let's start slow because they always come to me and they're just so overwhelmed and they're like, I just can't do anything. I know I need to do something, but I'm just so overwhelmed and I don't know what it is. And I'm like, well, you don't need to do anything big. Like
Right.
you think you need to do this massive thing and you don't. Let's start slow. Let's start manageable.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I like to start with that.
I love it. And I love that it sounds, it's a familiar journey to me when I realized that literally in all different shapes and sizes, everybody that I was working with was a perfectionist. I am not type A. You don't have to be type A in that classic sense. I did not identify at all. And again, until I had to like take a step back and be like, I can't be the exception to the rule, right?
Yeah.
Like so it may not look like the go-getter or I didn't have a corporate career. I didn't have, but it's like, oh shoot, and part of the gift when I was trying to figure out how to create a business, I had a coach, that just kept saying, done is better than perfect. And it's like,
Yes.
ooh, ouch. Okay, and it was a learning curve. And it's almost like that practice in being imperfect
Right.
shows you that the world keeps turning, and that's where the gold can be. So I want to talk about small steps and self-care. I know we were using exercise as the example because it's true. I don't even like the word exercise because people think, like CrossFit gym or,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let's take it in a little. Um, but I've heard you talk about to me, the words are interchangeable, but mindset work, self-care, meditation. I've heard you share that one of your favorite tools is journaling. And this is where I hear that same initial, kind of rebuttal is I don't have time,
Right.
right? Because people think they need to go sit in a cave or I can't meditate. I'm a bad meditator. I can't clear my mind. And it's like, well, that's actually not what meditation is.
Right.
So how do so I know we're aligned in it doesn't need to be a huge long thing, but it does need to be a practice.
Mhm.
Um, what are some of your favorite? I know I threw a bunch of them out there already, but share with listeners some of your favorite tools, especially I always say like find what resonates with you. Try different stuff, and hopefully it becomes a collection of things. But
Mhm.
where do you have people kind of start if they really have never done any kind of introspective work?
Yeah. Well, so this is where I start people, and the reason I start people here is because, again, I think, everybody's different and what feels good is different.
Sure.
I started practicing this on myself I stopped planning ahead. Like I wouldn't plan,
Oh,
I know, wild. Like I used to book out all my exercises for the week so that I had time to fit them in. Like I would plan out all the meals that I was going to have. I kind of just stopped doing that. And I would wake up every morning and just like assess the situation. You know,
what do I need today? Yeah.
what do I need today? That's exactly what I tell my clients. Ask yourself, what do I need today? Especially when I was struggling with sleep. Like, there is no way it is good for your body to go wake up at 5 in the morning to do a HIIT workout if
Right.
you struggle with insomnia.
Right.
Um, so I stopped planning ahead and I started waking up just kind of walking through my morning while I'm taking a shower, while I'm washing my face. What do I need today? I've got maybe a big presentation or maybe two big presentations that I'm preparing for. So it's a stressful day. Like I
Mhm.
need to think about that. I didn't sleep well last night because I was stressed about my presentation. Where am I at in my cycle? Like
Yeah.
that's a big thing that I think is
Mhm.
important. It is for me. So I kind of just like examine myself, and this is what I try to educate my clients on doing. What do you really need that day? And for me, it's personally always having like some sort of care practice in the morning.
Yeah.
I need to get my mind in a good place.
Mhm.
And that was when I was in the corporate world. And as I start my business, like I know that I mentally need to be in a good place in the morning.
Sure.
So I try to always get clients to make sure they reserve a little bit of time in the morning for that. I'm not a strict, like your morning routine needs to be the same every day kind of
Right.
person because I'm just like not into routines at all. I know so many people are, but again, like what do you need today?
And to be
So
fair, you got to that part of your journey after holding those routines so tightly,
yes.
right? So there are times and places where to create a new habit, a routine, can help that get that muscle memory going. But I do believe, especially for chronically ill, well, it's chicken or egg, probably for everybody. We lose touch with our body. Nobody teaches us to ask, what do I need today? Right? To check in, to feel, so I love that that's like, what could be more impactful than actually learning that skill?
Yeah.
Because it goes back to, back to the female thing of, I can show up better for other people when I've met my needs, right?
Right.
So
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, I love
I,
that.
yeah, and I'll say I think a really great thing is journaling. I think that's a really good way because you don't always know what you need.
Mhm.
I don't always know what I need, and I feel like I'm very in tune with my body. So I do think a journaling practice, like the morning pages, if anybody's familiar with that, just the practice of writing down, the three things that you need that day. Um, I think that that can be really, really powerful for a lot of women. I'll also say a small thing to add in, like morning routines are really big. I think a midday pause is sometimes even more important than having that established like morning wellness time. I mean, I think you really need both. But I think so many of us just
Plow
rush
through.
through our day
Yeah.
and don't breathe and walk around with our shoulders up to our ears. And I will hold my breath if
Me
I'm
too.
stressed out.
Hmm.
Um, so just taking a little bit of a pause. I know at my something I actually loved. So I worked for Salesforce, and they are very good about mindfulness and wellness, or at least they really try to be. And when I was going to the office, they actually had meditation rooms in all of the
Oh,
floors,
wow.
which yeah, which is
Amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of benefit from like an afternoon meditation.
Yes.
Just an afternoon meditation was so much more powerful for me than like a morning meditation.
Right. That can be like fuel creativity, productivity. I mean, it just, that's the beauty of playing, right? And not just saying, like, okay, I know morning routines are important. I'm going to do all these things that are good for me in the morning. And then I don't think about myself the whole rest of the day,
Yeah.
So I love we're talking about it like it's easy,
Mhm.
that checking in and what do I need and playing with different things. And I want to highlight everything you mentioned. None of those things have to take a long time, right? And then as coaches, we talk about stacking. Once we, play with the different stuff, and I call it tools in the toolbox. I don't do the same. I have certain things. I am a creature of habit. Certain routines, but my practices are not the same every day, and because sometimes I need more of something and less of something else. um but giving yourself permission to explore different things. I love breathing exercises for clients that are, just really new at any kind of meditation, mindfulness, because that they can usually feel pretty quickly.
Right.
And it's like, wow. I mean, I had one client who was wound so tight that when she first started doing just short, like 4-7 breathing, nothing fancy, she would get a stress response. The second her body would just try to get into a parasympathetic state, she'd get a stress response because it was just that foreign to her. She stuck
Yeah.
with it. I was really proud of her. Only took a few days, but it was really interesting. I mean, her heart was raised. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is really needed. But the journaling, I love gratitude journaling, for people that are intimidated by free journaling, or aren't there yet to be in touch with what are the three things I need today. Start with what are three things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
That's simple. Like really, again, it's as an exercise. So I love that you're not talking about these like big, complicated routines, and it really doesn't take away from career to take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely not. And, you made the comment that we're talking about it like this is easy. And something I hear all the time is like, oh, Madison, you've always been so good at that. Like, you're just so good at, you've
Right.
always eaten so healthy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, actually, that's not
No.
true. Um, you know, I think there's so much on social media, eat this way, do this, avoid all toxins, and I'm guilty of
Yeah.
that.
Right. Well,
I'm
we
I'm
want to
guilty of
educate
being,
people to
yeah,
empower them. Yeah.
yeah. You want to educate people, but at the same time, I do think like go back and forth on this so much because I'm like, I think I might be doing more harm than good at times
I hear you.
because people are made to think like if you don't do it this way, if you don't
Mm.
eat everything organic, if you don't do these things, that like it's not going to work. And getting healthy and being well is a practice. It is something you have to build. It is something you have to try at. Like meditation, I don't feel that I am good at meditation. And I've been working on it for like 7 years. I'm reading a book right now on meditation to deepen my meditation practice.
Yeah.
I don't do it every single day. There have been months where I've stopped, but I
Hmm.
keep going back to it because I know that I typically feel better when it's something that I try.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a practice. I know that I want to be well.
Right.
I know that I do not want to develop some of the things that I've seen my loved ones go through.
Yeah.
And so it's a practice and it's something I play with. And my health today doesn't look like it did last year or the year before. It's evolving.
Yes.
Um,
Always.
yeah,
You're never going to be done.
yeah,
And that carrying that perfectionism, and again, I know I'm saying it as if it's simple. You were using the word pushing earlier in the conversation, and we don't heal that way. It's not a checklist, right? We cannot create wellness and maintain wellness by handling our health like a checklist.
yeah,
And it used to drive me crazy. My fiance used to say, like years ago, and he's a functional medicine physician, and thank God, knock wood, has never had his own chronic health challenges. And he used to say, better is better. And I was still in that, like, no, it's got to be, you know what? Better is better. Like, we can't avoid all toxins, and we can't always eat organic, and nor do we need to. Like, and better really is better. If we do better in all these little pieces and allow wellness, that's how we get there.
yeah.
And so I love that you said that. And thank you for admitting I too, I don't identify as a bad meditator anymore, but I sure did for the longest time. And so I love that. And I too will step away from my practice, and do other things, and get that same, like, I really do. I literally just had this conversation. We were on vacation last week, and I was like, I know I am my best self when I am really consistent with my meditation routine. And so I need to bring that back in. And so I'm back on it for like a week. But we're human too, right? Like, I know I know how to do it. I know what I like. I know it makes me feel better. And yet I drift away from it sometimes. And it's like, oh, what needs an up level? What do I need today?
Yeah.
I love that you share that genuine part of your journey. I grew up eating double stuffed Oreos and drinking Coke. Like I wasn't born a health coach,
Yeah.
you know.
It didn't just come to me. I wasn't just like
No,
this way one day.
no.
It's
And
something I believe in and I try at. And um, yeah, I mean, it was a lot of unlearning for me, like a lot of not
yeah.
worrying about like, okay, I need to schedule this workout, check off the box. Like I swear those scheduled workouts like made me gain weight. I swear they did. Like they made me more stressed out.
Sure.
Um, yeah, I'm not, I very much believe in movement and exercise, but I would almost say like I'm not an exercise person anymore
Yeah.
because it feels, I mean, I walk, I do strength training, but
Right.
like um I don't like pushing that because I don't I feel that you need to be a little bit more intentional with it.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you bring that up too. One of the things I see, especially with my autoimmune clients, is it's almost like one end of the spectrum or the other, and they don't realize they're driving inflammation. So I get a lot of, and I was this way back in the day, as my health was declining and my pain was increasing. It's almost like I'm not going to lose this thing, right? And so that over exercising, just driving chronic inflammation and stress, or it, holding it to like, this is so important. And then when I miss, I fail. And so why bother, like the all or nothing is, I think, the biggest thing for most of us to unlearn so that we can actually just listen. You've given us so many. I'm excited to ask you this next question, but I know a lot of people struggle with it. But guests know to listen for it. What is one step listeners can take starting today to improve their health?
What is one step they can take today to improve their
I
health?
know it's so hard.
It is hard. Honestly, this one's gonna sound cheesy, probably. I really think it's probably, I mean, I don't know that this is a step. I really think people have to stop thinking they need to be perfect.
Yes.
I think you really have to try acts of love. Like, I think trying one act of love a day, even if it is really small, like something that is just for you, something that nobody knows about, something that makes you happy. Um, for me, honestly, like if I'm having a bad day, my father passed a year ago. So, it's been a hard year and
Yeah.
self-love has looked differently for me. And so something that I know that I've needed is to laugh.
Yes.
So, like an act of self-care for me and the way that I've showed my self-love is like I'll look up, like I'll watch videos of cats because I
Yeah,
love cats.
yeah, I have a couple of clients that some of their homework was literally, it was puppies,
Mhm.
one was like old sitcoms, because to activate that laughter muscle. And
Yeah,
but I love that you said, don't tell it, like, again, this isn't about getting a gold star or achieving something. And I love that you shared yours because it doesn't have to be, it can be cat videos. It could
yeah.
be whatever. And
It can be
so,
cheesy, it can be silly. Like,
yeah,
do something to make yourself laugh and smile. Do something that is just for you every day, and it can literally take 3 minutes.
right.
Start small, and like the more you do those things, and the more you realize like how much better you feel after putting in that small amount of time to think of yourself,
Mhm.
the more you will do it more.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
Oh, that was that was so good. I'm excited for listeners who needed, I always feel like, and I love that you really just allowed your one thing to come up
Mhm.
because, more than one, somebody definitely needs to hear that one. And I think it like, just imagine what a better place the world would be if everybody just took a couple minutes to do, show themselves some love every day. So that was
I think it
beautiful.
would be great. Yeah.
For people that are listening on the go, and this is a good time too to share a little bit about how you work with your clients. Where's the best place to find you?
Go to my website. All of my information is there. It's really easy to get in touch with me.
Awesome. And your website is, if they're not going to click the show notes?
It is wellwithmaddison.com, and it's Maddison with two D's. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. I know. I always say, Michelson spelled wrong, and I've heard you say the
Mhm.
Maddison with two D's.
Yeah.
And you've got lots of goodies on your website, and I know you've got, one-on-one coaching. We didn't even get into the testing you do, and we're very similarly aligned that way. But you also have group coaching for people that are just looking more for some accountability, and they're not necessarily ready to deep dive with you yet. So can't encourage listeners enough. Like, check out Maddison's work, and take some action on the things she said today.
Thank you so much.
So appreciate all the gold you've given us. For everyone listening, remember you can get those show notes and transcripts, including all the links, at inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.